Yes. Do you support the rebels or the Prime Minister, or maybe neither?
No, I think it's a plague on both their houses. The one thing about this plan is it's got to work, and I haven't seen it.
Oh, wait a minute, we want legislation to work?
Yeah.
Oh, right,
okay. I think we've got to be really clear about this. This is the key issue for the next general election. If you stop the boats, you've got a good chance of winning this election. Because it's the one thing that everybody's talking about. But I tell you, as a military guy, the one thing I don't see here is an overall strategy. I see a lot of tinkering around the edges. And again, bringing in a military metaphor, this sort of plan doesn't survive first contact with the enemy. And whether you think that's the judiciary, the British public, or indeed the situation on the ground, I don't think it's going to work. And unless you put in place something that manifestly is going to work, it won't convince the electorate and it won't stop the boats.
Well, and you don't just have to convince the electorate, you have to convince the migrants, because if we are looking at an election in the autumn, there's a lot more time for all those, particularly those summer crossings. We've already seen crossings starting sooner than they normally do in the new year, and people sadly dying. Although, again, as sympathetic as I am, and I'm sorry that someone died, you're in a safe country, you choose to get on a rickety dinghy in the middle of winter in terrible conditions. I mean, it was a likely thing. The idea that people who are willing to take that level of risk with their own lives are not willing to take the risk that, well, chances are I'm not going to be one of the, if at best, if these flights ever take off, a few hundred people sent to Rwanda.
Julia,
and even if I am, I'll just make my way across the continent of Africa, through Europe, and come and try again. The idea that you're willing to take the risk of crossing the Channel in icy seas, one of the busiest, routes of water in the world, but you won't take your chances on not being sent to Rwanda is absurd. Even the bill, if the bill went through, even with all of the amendments that the rebels want, it still wouldn't actually make any remote difference.
That's the problem. One thing, though, Julia, I mean, I've been doing some research in this. A lot of people aren't taking the risk. They're actually ignorant of what actually being on the water is. Some of them have never seen the sea before, and I understand that quite a lot of the criminal enterprises are saying, look, it's just a river crossing.
They don't realise
they don't understand the dangers or far.
You're just holding onto a dinghy for half an hour. And
just get in the boat, you'll be fine.
8 hours later.
And this is the real criminal element, is that people are being conned onto the water. My view is, the French have got to do more. They're allowing people to go in the water, and until we declare humanitarian crisis in the Channel, and let's face it, the pantomime season has given way to the boating season already, as you say, we're going to have more tragedies, and we're going to be flooded again with people who aren't authorised to come.
I mean, we are in a situation where MPs are debating this, so 12 hours to debate yesterday and today, with probably very little impact. Although there is a situation where if, and no one seems to think this will actually happen, even many of the rebels, if we did see this Safety of Rwanda Bill voted down, and this is basically a reaction to the Supreme Court ruling last year, saying, look, they don't think Rwanda's safe, these people could face detention or deportation to an unsafe country. And they're saying, no, we've got this legal assurance, it's fine. If this does go through, it doesn't really make any difference. But if it doesn't go through, it is a major disaster for the government in terms of the message it sends to the electorate, message of disunity, the authority of the Prime Minister. So it's that weird thing where it really, really matters to get this bill through, except it doesn't really matter because it won't really change anything, which is kind of a wonderful metaphor for where we are in this country right now. So much talk and so little that actually makes any real change to anything that actually happens.
Yeah, I mean, I was reflecting this morning coming in that we've gone from being a can-do society to a can't-do or won't-do society. And actually, there is no penalty for inaction and not taking decisions.
Well, there may well be a penalty looking at the election predictions.
Absolutely.
Look, we've spoken to you about this many times. To go through what you think would actually work, and I know you've actually sent this idea to Downing Street as a former NATO and Royal Navy commander dealing with how to deal with people on the seas, which is the issue. What is your big idea? And what was the reaction from number 10?
So I think we have to accept that migration is a global problem, and everybody's going to have to sort it out at some stage. If you had this happening on land, it would be a humanitarian crisis. And that's what we need to declare in the Channel. And that way we can obviously put in place those sort of measures that are needed to deal with it, regardless of what laws and conventions are in place.
That's declaring a humanitarian crisis effectively creates a legal situation where you can
different situation.
do whatever action you deem
and then
necessary.
we need to engage the French in that humanitarian issue.
What if they don't engage?
Well, of course, they get held up as morally responsible for people being put in the water. And I think we need to actually say to the French, you are responsible for these people going in the water. The second thing is I would put decent technology in place. There are some fantastic drones that stay up for 2 days at a time that not only give you radar, but also electro-optics, so you can see what's going on, but also can intercept the mobile phone calls of the traffickers.
So they could basically monitor the whole of that coast. Pretty much these boats set off from like 2 or 3 beaches. It's not like they're hidden in plain sight, aren't they? The French police often stand and watch them.
Yep, it's all doable. So
so what do? You know these boats are about to launch.
You say to the French, it's about to happen in 10 minutes' time. This is where you need to go. And I'm afraid we have to hold the French to account. The second thing we need to do is recognise that all you have to do when people claim they're in distress or mid-channel, they have to be taken to a place of safety.
They don't have to be taken back to Britain.
Don't have to be
That's
brought
the
to
argument I
Britain.
know my audience has been making. Why do we pick them up? Yes, let's pick them up because we're a decent society. But why do they have to come here?
And my idea has always been that we take them to liners or cruise ferries in international waters between England and France. We process their applications there, and if they're rejected, they have to be sent back or sent to Rwanda. If you turn up without a passport, you don't actually get processed.
Well, this is the thing. But also, again, and most of them we know, something like 90% don't have documentation deliberately.
Turn them around.
And then they can claim they're from wherever. Yeah.
And so
if I turned up in France without, or coming back from France without a passport, I'm not letting the country.
Exactly. So you've got to put a speed bump in place to say, look, you're not being brought to Britain. You're going to stay in international waters, and we'll take you straight to Rwanda if you don't qualify.
And how long ago did you send this plan to Number 10?
6 years ago.
6 years. Have you sent it since again?
Yeah, it's been
each new Prime Minister.
It's been sponsored by one of my friendly MPs, a chap who I shouldn't mention.
Okay, no, don't get me in trouble. Okay, and what has been the response?
And I'm afraid it was a blast of indifference.
Nothing.
Not invented here. It's not part of the conversation.
Why do you think they won't do it? Because I think a lot of people feel this is about political will.
No, it's been about political courage.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to say that right now we don't have statesmen and women, and we don't have people prepared to make the decisions. I know one person who would have made this decision very quickly, and that's Margaret Thatcher. And she would have made this happen. She would have said action this day after Churchill, and it would have been done.
Okay.